Hello and welcome to episode 4 of CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast. I'm your host, the creator called BOAST, and with me this morning, we again have not one, but 2 guests from the Corepunk community. That's right, it's a morning show. We're getting our coffee on, and we're about to get our talk on around Corepunk. Our first guest is someone you should most definitely know by now. That's right, it's the Blue Deer Dvalin. He's returning today, and that's DVALINDK on YouTube. Catch his regular content creation there, and also on Twitch. That's DVALIN on Twitch. Hello, Dvalin, and welcome back once again to CORECAST.
Hello, good morning, and thanks for having me again.
Indeed. It's a coffee morning for me. What are you drinking?
It's chocolate.
Ooh. Okay, very nice. Well, let's get into our second guest, Dvalin. Our second guest for tonight is the infamous SsebastiusS. That's SSEBASTIUSS on Discord. He's an insanely active member of the community on the Corepunk Discord, responsible for so much of the great yet sometimes intense conversations happening there. And he's a huge champion for the Polish community. In fact, there's a link to the Polish community that we will put in the description later on. And so big thanks from the community for everything that you do, SsebastiusS, and for your just absolute tireless involvement in the Corepunk community so far. Hello, SsebastiusS, and welcome to CORECAST.
Hello and good morning. I think you hyperbolized my description, but that's fine.
I'm sorry?
I think you're overreacting about my description. That's totally fine with me.
Are you saying I hyped
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Are you saying I hyped you too much?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, man. I think if there was there's two glues to this community that I see right now, and you're both in here. There's one on the just constant content creation side of things, which is Dvalin, and there's one on the just absolutely carrying the community chat, and that's you. And I don't think that's an overreaction. All right.
It depends, but let's go on.
Before we get started, I want to say thank you once again to everyone that's listened to the first episodes and have contributed topics or suggestions. Thank you for your continued support. And this is a crazy week. This is an absolute crazy week. We launched on Spotify this week. We launched on SoundCloud this week. And we got episode 3 out on YouTube as well. So a very busy week for me. A very busy week for CORECAST, and a really awesome week because it really feels great to get all that content out there. I know a lot of people were asking for Spotify, and so Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, and of course YouTube. All of these links will be in the various descriptions, and you can consume this content however you want now, which is really cool. So we've got some fun topics today, I want to say, and they come from various members of the community. And then, of course, we've got a very important question to ask SsebastiusS. But before we get to that, we are going to start with topic number 1, provided by Ice King. And he asks items, and I replied with as in what they could be, what they should be, our opinions on that, and what should be avoided. And he says yes, and about the quality of items, as if one item could have more qualities: epic, unique, legendary, that kind of stuff. So, guys, we haven't seen so much about items yet. We've got some teases to it in the trailer, some conversation happening a little bit around it. But items in the sense of the things that you're able to equip, and maybe also consumables. Let's talk about those things, what we know so far, what we think they will be and how they will act, and what this will mean to gameplay. And SsebastiusS, since you are the new guy, I would like to put you on the spot and start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I will start with the items qualities. Right now, we know there are gonna be normal, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary quality. Normal will have 1 stat, uncommon will have 2 stats, epic will have 3 stats, and legendary gonna have 4 stats. That's how we know so far about the item qualities. And I think that's adds a lot of variety to build making. Because in the end you all gonna end up with legendary items, but through the leveling process it will be fun to have like rare drop when you are geared only in commons and uncommons. It should be fun.
And how do you think that's going to play out? Is this something that you think will be fairly easy to get, sort of like the gray items, for example, and get a pretty solid inventory of items to start? Or do you think these will be super rare?
Depends. Legendary one's gonna be quite rare so far we've seen from Stack answers.
Yeah. Okay.
On Discord, because it's gonna be crafted from rare recipes and have small chance of dropping from world bosses and just normal world drop.
Okay.
But I think the commons one gonna rotate pretty fairly early in the gameplay, because usually gray ones are trash that you're gonna sell to vendors pretty soon, because uncommons is the way to go when you wanna gear up in the MMO games. But we will see. We don't know much details right now.
And do you think this is something, these things that will also be able to craft as crafters?
You're talking still about gray ones, yes?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's gonna be useless to have this on crafting table, because when you wanna craft something, maybe they're gonna be gray items craftable just to level up the profession.
Yeah.
But in the end, you don't wanna craft them because no one will buy them.
I think Dvalin might disagree. I think he might be the first one in line to buy that item to get a head start in the game instead of waiting to craft it himself, because we know he doesn't very much want to craft in the games. He just wants to go kill baddies. So, but yeah, it's a good point. Early on, crafting these things or picking them up in the wild to get your items and your inventory started.
Yeah, sure. I will add some point to the earlier sentence.
Okay.
Now you mentioned it. It all depends on the level requirement of the item. If you can wear uncommon items on level 1 and so on, you won't buy gray items anyway to get a head start. And
Yeah.
that's the point, because we don't know.
And do you think these things will be lootable off mobs as well, or off of just bigger creatures and bosses?
Yeah, I think Shaq mentioned wardrobe in general, so it's gonna drop from mobs, everything, but it will have low chance. But I see monsters dropping artifacts pretty fairly.
Okay, cool. Because this is more important, I would say, than traditionally in MMOs, because this is what it's all based on, right? Like, we're not getting any stats on our armor, so the stats are in the abilities and stuff are going to come from items, and these they're called artifices, right?
Artifacts, yes.
Artifacts, yeah. So it's going to be all about this, I guess, as far as stat building and leveling up and this kind of thing. Dvalin, as you mentioned before, and as I just put your name on the spot as well, you're a killer of baddies, a champion of the realm, and not one to go into that crafting menu and craft this stuff for yourself. So at an early level in games like this, do you go and search out these like really like low tier items to buy just so you can get a little edge, or do you just kind of power through it until you get to better stuff?
No, well, no. I'm probably the guy who the first 39 levels, I don't think a second thought about items at all. It's first when I actually only come to endgame, like level 40 in this case, where I will begin to think about endgame gear. So the first 39 level, I'm like always, I don't really care what I use or which items I have, because I just want to power level through the game and kill baddies. But in level 40, when I of course come to the max level, I will be the guy who will be harvesting enemies, getting gold, and then I will be standing in the auction house 24/7 and buying items from people who actually want to craft.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm going to be on the opposite side of that, as we discussed in last week's podcast. I'm very much into seeing what the crafting will be like, and as a crafter, you have to start somewhere, right? So, as Sebastius mentioned, maybe this is just a matter of leveling up your crafting skill, because we do know that every aspect of the game, including crafting, is going to have a ranking system. And so to build that ranking system up, you do have to start somewhere. Sebastius, I had a thought on this and a question, two parts. Do you think these items will be rewarded as quest rewards and getting better with the higher the quests? And do you think that these items will also potentially have like set bonuses, like shoes of valor, coat of valor, and then you put those together and then you have like a bonus to your stats? What do you think about those two?
First thing about the sets, we already got confirmed that there are gonna be sets like set from the developers. So we're gonna have Boots of Valors and Mace of Valor, for example. I think
Okay.
it's gonna count as a set. And back to those items, I think it's gonna be somewhere between questing and dropping from mobs. Because we saw in the trailer that one quest gave gold and some kind of blue artifact. So we're gonna drop through questing and both in world drop. So, for example, we're gonna have some artifacts from quests, but it will be nice to have better one dropping from monsters. That's how I see it so far.
Okay. And Dvalin, what about items in this conversation is most interesting to you? Besides the sort of base general items that we may want to have, is there anything that you would hope to see in there as a unique item?
Well, I know Sebastius also has been playing a lot of Destiny 2. Am I right?
Yeah,
Sebastian?
I played it pretty much, but as for me, I'm a solo player, so I didn't try Leviathan right. I did in fact try just Nightfalls, but generally I know how Destiny works. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the point I want to make with Destiny is that I'm not sure if I want a system like that or not, because they have, legendaries in Destiny, but you're only allowed to have one on each time. So you can basically get one for each of the slots, but you can only have one active at the same time. I'm not sure if I want something like that, or if I actually want so you can actually have full legendary on, but I kind of feel like full legendary shouldn't be achieved.
I think it all depends on the abilities because in Destiny, in this legendary item, you have so unique abilities that
Yeah.
one ability can one shot people. Just like, for example, there is an ability that when you dodge, you're gonna recover half of your HP.
Oh,
Only.
yeah.
So, for example, those abilities are quite strong. So developers don't want to have people more than one of these such abilities, which allows for
Yeah.
nice build making. We will see if the legendary items are gonna be like something, I don't know, 500 damage with like 20-second cooldown. Yeah, so that's basically just another skill that is as strong as hero skill. So having like six of such skill will be too powerful. That's how I see it. It all depends on the items.
That's correct. I remember in World of Warcraft Legion, the expansion Legion, they had the same where you could get insanely overpowered legendaries, but you were actually only allowed to have two of the items on at the same time. Um, but for some reason, I just feel like I'm not sure, but for some reason, I don't like that system because then I get a really good head, but I have a legendary there. So do I have to keep the purple head, or should I sell the purple head? Or what if I get another legendary, so I don't want to use my head anymore because then I have to have my backup item ready for my head. So that's like the scenario where you have to keep on saving a lot of items in the bank because what if there's another situation where you don't want to use your legendary head anymore, but then you need to have another head because you just need these backup items, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that.
I don't think such thing will happen in Corepunk. To be
No, it's
honest, I think they based combat and builds when it comes to items more on MOBA games. and MOBA games keep it healthy with items. So I think it's doable to do set of items that will not be broken, but you can wear a lot of legendaries and they will go nicely together because, for example, you're gonna have 3 active items versus someone with 6 active items or legendaries. So he have a 6 active items, and for example, oh yeah, now I think about it, you can have 2 CC items, for example, on actives, and it's gonna be quite broken. So we will see. We first need to know the items to speak in such manner, I guess.
Yeah,
Speculating in that topic is quite hard, especially with the amount of variety that is added to artifacts.
yeah, okay. I mean, if I'm thinking, if I just want to say my personal opinion, I think it would be the best system would be if we can just have. I mean, if the game allows to have full legendary set on, but it should be like, as we said, it should be like, well, I think it should be like in Guild Wars 2, where the items basically just give stats, and then of course Corepunk is also got to have stat item and active item. So yeah, I think it's personally it's yeah, if the game has full legendary set, you should be able to do it, but it should only and only be for the hardcore players and not someone who just did a looking for rage, something like that.
One last thought on this topic, and we'll start with Sebastius and then go to Dvalin. I want to talk about what you guys normally do in games, and I'm asking specifically about theory crafting and meta chasing, or just straight up taking what you get and living with it. Starting with Sebastius, what kind of player are you going to be in this game without giving too much away about your secret play styles that you will bring to Corepunk? But are you going to be theory crafting the best builds and chasing the meta, or are you going to be living with what you get and just powering through?
I'm definitely not going to be meta chasing and theory crafting, though, because I theory craft only in card games and to be specific, Magic the Gathering. But in the MMO, I like to play casually mostly.
Okay.
Like, I want to play the game the way I want to play it, not to be the best or go for the top 10 on the server. I'm just chilling out in the games. And in Corepunk, I think my playstyle will be I will just leave what I get, and it will be nice to save up some money and buy some good gear in equipment. But again, I need to see the items. Then I can decide if I want to recraft or just use finished builds.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I definitely won't be used internet builds. I just hate using someone builds. I like to create my own, even though it's a little bit less stronger than the meta top tier. But I just like to have things my way.
I 100% respect that. I feel like I'm the same kind of player. Sometimes I will go and search out an OP build if I want to get ahead in a MOBA or something like that. But in MMOs, I'm the same way. I want to play it how I want to play it with the gear that I want to use, and sometimes that isn't in the meta. As I mentioned previously, my main in Guild Wars 2 was an engineer, and I wasn't always the strongest player out there, but I had so much goddamn fun playing that engineer, running around and throwing turrets and using my flamethrower and all this. So yeah, I'm with you there on that. Dvalin, what's your take on this?
Well, it's funny because if you go back probably a half year, 1 year ago, the only thing I was doing for my YouTube channel was only creating guides on how to play, spec or OP builds in World of Warcraft. So I was actually the person who made the builds, and then a lot of people saw them and played the builds. So I kind of like to, well, honestly, I like to go to the websites, find the best builds in the game, and then like transform them into something, I should say, something that I like to play, because sometimes people with the high tier, they play with a spec where they get a spell while I'm like, why would anyone use this spell? It's horrible to use. It's of course good on the damage meter, but it's really unfun to play with. So I normally take like the best builds, then I transform them a little bit, and then I like to create my own guides to make other people play with them. But that's my own play style, that I like to take the top tiers and then change them a little bit so it fits me. But I still want to be that guy who uses what the top people are using, because I mean, if they're using it, there must be a reason for it. So you can probably call me a bit a starstrucker.
That's fair. I mean, you're taking something and then modifying it to fit your play style. I think that's also pretty cool because it does give you a good base, a good foundation to start with, and maybe that's a good recommendation for new players to do, is to take something that's out there and then work their own sort of spin on it. That has been topic 1, the conversation on items provided by Ice King. A really interesting point and a really interesting topic. And I think all of us are dying to see more about items and to be able to further this conversation in the future.
Hello, my name is Dvalin. Are you looking for a YouTuber or a content creator who are mostly talking about Corepunk and actually have met the Corepunk developers in real life and even on the Christmas day? Well, that's me. Go to youtube.com/DvalindK, DVALINDK. Again, youtube.com/DvalindK. I am doing a lot of content about Corepunk, but also about other MMORPG games and RPG games. So come and follow me and follow the journey through Corepunk the game itself. Thank you and have a nice life.
Okay, and welcome back to CoreCast episode 4. This is topic 2, and Shivo has provided the topic for topic 2. He says, could you try talking a bit about boss design in an isometric MMO? So a bit different take on the MMO genre here with Corepunk, a bit of a Diablo view as far as the camera goes. And we've already seen a little bit of a boss fight in the trailer and some of the sort of dungeon crawling that led up to it. So Dvalin, we'll start with you on this one. Let's talk about boss fights and the design going into these bosses. You played a lot of MMOs and you played a lot of World of Warcraft. And so you've played a lot of probably traditional boss fights. How is that going to differ in this view, in your opinion? And what do you hope to see just from your experience from boss fights in the boss fights in Corepunk?
Well, first of all, the very interesting thing here is that all the MMO I have been playing is pretty much, MMOs where you actually see it in third person. You see like from below, from behind your character, or even first person. But having an MMO where we're seeing from what does people call it? Top view, eagle view, something like that.
Yeah, it's almost a bird's eye view, but not quite, just not quite that drastic.
Yeah, exactly. So boss fights is just gonna be so different because in World of Warcraft, if something happened behind you, you wouldn't see it because you have to actually face your cam around. But in this game, you can basically see whatever is going to happen around you. And it's really new for me. I haven't really played a lot of games like this. But if you ask me, how would a perfect boss fight be in this case? Well, I don't want the boss fights to be these typical dungeons in other MMOs where you go in, a tank tanks the tanks tank the boss, a healer is healing, and 3 DPS is just standing still and damaging. That's like the most boring thing ever. There needs to be some kind of a telegraph on the earth that is showing you, well, if you stand here in the next 3 seconds, you're probably gonna die, or something like that. Very closely to like what Wildstar. Well, rest in peace, Wildstar. We miss you all. Well, a game like Wildstar had a really good boss fights with all the telegraphs on the earth, and I know World of Warcraft is also doing something like that now, but telegraphs on the earth, people are knowing, okay, I have to move out of this. Things are moving. You have to actually move around and do a lot of hectic stuff. That is my favorite ones. But I also like a good puzzle in the boss fight itself. I mean, if you go into the raids in I know Destiny is probably, it's not called MMORPG, but if you go into Destiny and do the boss fights in their raids, they are so hardcore and puzzle-ish that it's like sometimes impossible to do them. And I love a good boss fight like that, but I don't think the boss fights in Corepunk should be so hardcore in dungeons. I think dungeons should be for everyone who could explore, but think the raids should have boss fights that is like impossible. If you don't have a group that is strong enough, you should not be able to see the last boss in a raid in Corepunk. But dungeons, I think the boss fights in dungeons should be for everyone. Everyone should be able to explore it, have fun, kill the bosses. Well, in some kind of a grade, but raid bosses should definitely be hardcore, puzzle-ish, and you really have to sit down, draw on your whiteboard, and say, "Boast, you have to go to the left, Dvalin go right, Sebastius go underground," something like that. That's what I think is a great boss fight, when you actually have to talk about the tactics and not just say, "Okay, have anyone read the text? No, okay, let's just kill it anyway." If you follow me.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this a bit in the past. We're both a fan of puzzles, and I think also with this isometric view, you can have a lot of changes and hazards in the environment. A lot of things that like floors will drop out, and and then lava will be exposed, and you have to avoid that. Just for an example, a lot of this stuff you can do in this view because you can see the floor so much better, and you always have an idea, like you said, of what's kind of going on around you. So a lot of action and movement and changes in the environment, plus different puzzle aspects, like you said, I think would really make it something special. As we've seen already, dying and potentially wiping is definitely going to be a thing. And I think, to your point, on the raid side of things, you really need to expect to wipe a lot, and figure out how this thing actually works. And hopefully, you're dying because you are applying these ideas of a traditional MMO boss fight to something that's not that. And it's something that instead they have a really tricky, out of the box take on it. And if you're only applying this very conservative or traditional view of a fight, it's not going to work. That's what I hope we'll see. So that you really have to start thinking like, damn, what are we doing wrong? Like, this has worked in every other game. Why isn't it working now? Well, that's because you actually miss the signs of the puzzles or the potential environmental stuff that you need to do. And I think that's what I hope to see from it. Sebastius, what's your take on this?
I'm gonna say unpopular opinion on this, to be honest, because an isometric view, it sure adds a lot of depth because you know what is going around you, not only in front of you and 1 meter behind you, like in third person. But I think it really simples up the thing. So isometric view tends to be very simple when it comes to boss fights, and making it complicated is quite hard from the developer side of view. I think we're gonna see more complicated patterns of bosses' attacks and skill more than a positive approach to the boss. That's how I see it so far, but I may be wrong.
Okay, so you think that instead of sort of ramping up the overall environment and surroundings of the player, it's going to be more about just the insanity of the attacks and the pacing of them, and yeah.
Yeah, that well as well. But I think in isometrics, I'm gonna bring up Path of Exile as example. It's much fun to do instead of changing environment in one place. It's much funnier and easier to do like chambers. So you're gonna bring down the boss to a certain amount of health, and you're gonna change the chamber, you're gonna change the attacks and stuff like that. So you need to chase him after he gets like, for example, he gets to half HP. He runs to the other chamber. Whole right needs to go to another chamber, and he changes his attacks. When you bring him up to third HP, the wall between chambers broke, and you have one big arena. Boss gets berserk mode, grows up in size, and you're gonna have pretty fast wipe if you don't kill him fast enough. Something like that.
Yeah, interesting. We've seen this before in other games, and I don't know how I feel about it. I think so the way you described it, I like the sound of it because I feel like it adds this level of immersion. You know, the boss smashes through the wall because he's mad, or he breaks through the floor and you all fall down to another level. This can definitely be immersive, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but the feeling like as a player sometimes when you're in that situation and you get them to half health, and then they run away, is if it's not done right, I think it can be frustrating. But if it's done well, I think it's cool.
Yeah, if it's done wrong, it might be frustrating. We saw it many times.
You know what I mean?
Because
Like you think you're getting him, and then he runs off. But if it's shown as that it's just the progression in the fight, then I think that's fine, and that can actually be kind of cool.
well, I think it won't be that frustrating as long as it doesn't have some bugs that resets him if he runs out for a
Right.
while.
Right. If he ran away and disappeared, and then you were just like thrown back into the world, and then had to fight him again later at some other time, that would suck.
I think that stages will be the way to go with harder bosses, to be
Okay.
honest, because in isometric games, it may seem that it looks harder, but to be honest, in MOBA style games and MMORPGs in general, isometric views are straighten things up, to be honest. Because it's not that hard to manage something you see around yourself. You see everything around yourself, and here we have unlockable camera, so we can pretty easily see whole terrain. But I think it will be easier than a third-person game because in third person you have things in boss design like that won't work in isometric game.
Okay. And Dvalin, what do you think about this sort of like tiered approach to it? Have you experienced this in a game before?
Well, I think there's actually there's actually a big category of category library of bosses in World of Warcraft who does the same things. You mentioned, for example, the one with breaking through the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, they have a really cool boss called Black Hand. I'm not sure if you heard about him. Big orc, white skin. His hand is replaced with a sword, I think.
Okay.
But he's every time you get him down to like 25% or something like that, he's breaking through the floor, and you get to a new level, and it just gets more insanely. But I agree with you with that point that you're saying that if you get a boss down to like 50%, then he runs away, and then the next 10 minutes you're going to face trash mobs, and then he comes back after that. And if you wipe through trash mobs, you kind of wipe the raid, and you're like, I kind of agree with that. That can suck. if I can say it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just it's a matter of how it's done, and also like there's a lot of times when you're fighting bosses that you can't get them past a certain amount of health unless you figure out the mechanics around it. And also, I think, in my opinion, if that's not done right, that can be kind of frustrating as well, because you think you're doing the right thing and you're not, but you don't have any tells to tell you that. And I think that is a fine line between figuring out what the puzzle is and actually having some intelligent feedback from the game as well, which I think you need to have a balance of. And
Yeah.
Sebastius, do you have any last thoughts on this conversation?
I think I will add one point to this topic because I was actually in the discussion with Shiva. We're discussing boss fights, and it started off by size of the boss. So we can also discuss the immersivity of the boss fight depending on its size, because that's how the discussion initially started. Because it's an isometric game, so you can't make too big bosses because it will clunky up the screen and take too much space. But I think it can be done pretty easily with static boss fights, if they're gonna be so. Like the boss doesn't move, you only see half of his body that's sticking out of the void or something like that, and you're gonna fight the first half, then you're gonna move underground and fight his legs separately or something like that.
I like that.
That will be fun.
Yeah, that's a funny take on it. Do you think to that point? Do you think there would be the possibility of the camera actually pulling back out during a boss fight, so that everything is a lot smaller, or do you think this is not something that would happen?
It depends from the design team.
Yeah,
view,
sure.
Because I don't know how the camera system were done from the development side. So I can't really say, because it seems like it's easy thing to do, to zoom out the camera to the point you need to see the full boss. But from the design, if the camera system is done what I think it's done, then you can have a little bit problems from the design side of making such thing happen. Because you're gonna first need to detect the boss chamber, or is it gonna be place? So first you need to insert place or boss detector somewhere in the camera system. Then you're gonna need to zoom out the camera, and then you're gonna need to, because you have a focus 4, yeah. So it all depends how the party members are set up to increase its visibility. And if you're gonna zoom out too much, it might lead to some visual bugs, like seeing something that normal player wouldn't see with normal camera on max range.
Right.
Like end of wall, the void, because the dungeons are closed areas. Yeah.
Right.
So you can see at minimap that it has something like, if you are playing games, you probably many times, mostly in Counter-Strike, if you played it, you can see that if you allow people to see more that is intended to see, they're gonna see a void and many visual bugs. That's the problem here.
Absolutely.
And game like that doesn't like to showcase the bugs to players, especially after open beta.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. It also goes back to the conversation about how many players will actually be in raids, because you just mentioned 4. And in previous conversations, we talked about, will there be a possibility of more players in?
Oh, I didn't mention 4. I just mentioned people.
Okay. So
by how many? Because I know raids gonna be 12 to 20.
Right. So with this many players on the screen, a point to that is you're going to need to figure out how to manage this in many different ways, and figure out if your friend needs healing who's off the screen, how you manage that, and how you manage all these players in one location. But that's I think a topic for another time. This has been.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because I know people who discuss the topic about bosses first started off by camera work.
Right. Well, I mean, the camera is a huge differentiator of this game from other MMOs. So
yeah,
it's an important conversation, and it's going to really shape this game in a lot of ways. So I think it's a great topic, and the number of players that will be allowed to participate in dungeons and raids is also a very important topic as well. We can bring this back, I think, after we've played a bit, right? And experienced some of this for ourselves and see what it actually looks like. Shout out to Shivo for the question about boss design in an isometric MMO. That's been topic 2 here on CORECAST.
Greetings, adventurer, and welcome to COREPunk, an MMORPG where you'll experience fog of war in a vast, seamless open world. Miles and miles of wilderness to get lost in. Discover a small camp in the middle of nowhere. Or a busy metropolis booming with life and activity. You are free to go wherever you want. Use public transport to reach remote locations fast and safe. Begin your journey by creating a hero. Each has its own unique role, abilities, and a set of fighting styles. Complete quests for NPCs who are too busy to do it themselves.
You're gonna need a better gear for that.
Kill monsters to earn gold. Shred them with your best move. Be careful, though. They get pretty crafty when fighting as a unit. Grow crops, chop wood, Mine ore! Trade goods for missing resources to craft the weapon you deserve. Suit up! It won't make you stronger, but you'll look absolutely fabulous. Choose a set of talents. Boost yourself with artifacts to become the ultimate war machine. Use Fog of War wisely to hunt down and ambush your enemies. Attack those who dared to take your farming spot. Then chill in a city, show off your loot, and find reckless companions to take on a challenge that no one else has the guts for.
We will come again. We'll come again until we're done. 'Cause only those who win, only those will stand their ground. No one leaves until we're done. When we stand as one, we won't leave till we're done. When we stand as one, we won't leave till
Sign up for beta at corepunk.com.
All right, welcome back to CoreCast. This is topic 3, and this is now a tradition on the show to ask the new guest what their dream class in Corepunk would be. So far, Dvalin and Dragam have provided their dream classes. I sort of touched on mine a little bit in the first episode where we discussed this, but now a reoccurring theme to the show. And we'd like to ask Sebastius now. Sebastius, what is your dream class for Corepunk? If you could create a class with no limitations to look, gameplay, mechanics, style, feel, any of that stuff, what would it be?
I think it's gonna be melee shaman with totems.
Okay. You can elaborate on that and tell us like how it would look and how it would play?
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking more something like a World of Warcraft Ragnar, where he has claws, yeah, and he also uses Force of Nature. So on the looks, it's gonna be something like your typical shaman in wooden masks, some stuff like that, with claws as a weapons. It's gonna place totems that boost him and party members. You're gonna have one dash to jump out to people because melee classes usually need dash to get close to casters and stuff like that. And it's gonna just place totems that gonna boost his auto attacks and party members. Maybe some healing ability, some fire, lightning, stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, I have a question for you on that one. Because I when I talked about my class, I said which 3 specs I would like to have. If you should say 3 specs that you want your shaman to have, what should the difference be between
Oh,
these specs?
Yeah. So first spec gonna be your tank, where he has an tremor totem or something like this that boosts the aggros of mobs on him. Then he gonna have some killing ability, some taunts, and some AoE to help clear team trash mobs. Second specialization would be DPS, where he places a totem that emanates the Nova. AoE damage just in the circles, some stuff like that. And he gonna use chain lightning, stuff like that. And he gonna have some AoE spells as an addition. And first spec, I think it should be support, where he has a lot of totems that boost party members.
Oh.
That's just my funny idea. I don't see it much. Maybe it will be, but I think not in this game. But we will see. Maybe somewhere in the future.
That's a cool take on it. And it's a bit nature freaky like Dvalin likes. So Dvalin, what do you think about this totem placing shaman?
Well, I mean, when I played other MMOs like WoW and so on, my druid was always the first pick, but I was always I was always cheating on him with a shaman. So I'm kind of following Sebastius. That would be so legit to have a shaman in Corepunk. That would be so cool. If he can transform into a wolf or something like that, I'm sold.
Absolutely. I'm always a fan of this kind of character that can place things in the environment and help the team through either being tanky or supportive. This is a really cool concept as well. And I think maybe, and maybe I'm completely off base here, but I think out of all of the suggestions so far, this one feels like the close to being possibly a reality in the game. But maybe I'm completely off base, or maybe I haven't had enough coffee. I'm not sure, but this one seems like very doable and very friendly to this character creation that we've had a glimpse into in this game. Anything else to add to your dream character, Sebastius?
No, I think I don't have
What?
anything to add.
A last question for you, Sebastius. Now that we know that these heroes in Corepunk is going to be, you can't choose race or anything. It's like you're getting locked. Which race would you prefer to be as the shaman?
Oh, that means a phrase. That's a tough question, to be honest.
Well,
But
I
it's
mean,
definitely gonna be some fantasy like race. But let me think a bit.
a very characteristic standard dwarf or orc or
Yeah,
troll.
I
Even
think
if they added torrents to the game, that would be sick.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like the idea is that all of these races come from different places, right? To come here.
because according to the lore, you're an outsider from the planet, so it could be anything.
Exactly, which is cool because it opens up a lot of
think-
possibilities.
Maybe some robotic race, because it will just look cyberpunky. The totem's gonna be just mechanical devices, cybernetic devices, stuff like that, alien technology, stuff like that. I know it might sound weird, but having a robotic shaman that places robotic totems is quite fun idea, I guess.
Yeah, I know you lost Dvalin there, but you got me sold on it. I love it because it's sort of like putting two opposites together, right? It's like putting this nature infused idea
To be
and putting it
honest,
into a robot body.
But according to the fantasy so far and science fiction, the robots are the things that are very broad term and can do anything. Depends on the design of the robot. So I think robot will have a much easier way to deal with nature than a human when it comes to fantasy. But it's gonna be more like a fantasy mix, and they're definitely gonna be more immersive because usually shamans spawn totems out of nowhere, and robot will have animation that he builds them or throws something and it expands, like like those from science fiction films where you throw a small cube somewhere and it grows into something bigger.
Yeah, it expands, it grows legs,
Yeah.
starts spinning, lights come
Yeah,
out.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Dvalin, you hate this. I can tell already. I can feel it through the mic.
Yeah, he's now doing a dragon too. So first his class was also sounding really cool, and then he talked about all this cyberpunk thing, and then I'm leaving.
That's okay. There's something for everyone in this game, hopefully.
It's gonna go by armor anyway. So
that would be funny if the robot was wearing like
samurai armor. Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about this yesterday on official Discord, I guess. Yeah, I guess cosmetics needs to be locked because I don't see Bomberger in full plate armor or stuff like that.
Oh, in some leather armor and some plant-based.
Yeah, because
Stuff.
if cosmetics gonna be unlocked, you saw the samurai armor concept art, from Fidance.
Yeah,
And let's see. Imagine if cosmetics are not class locked and Bomberger wears that armor.
I love it. I personally love it. I love the freedom of it and being able to, like, for example, everyone's saying that the using this battle mage in Albion Online basically with the plate armor is not a smart thing to do because you're taking a hit on your healing and on your damage output. But you know what? I look like a badass, and I'm having fun with it. And I think it's a pretty unique look to have a book in one hand, a staff in the other, and then full metal armor like a knight. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think it would be funny because then you get Dvalin sort of back in your corner. It's like, yeah, he's a druid. Okay, cool, nature freaky. And then, but cyberpunk based, and he's a robot. Okay. And then you say, but he's got like this full on nature inspired woodlands gear theme to him.
Exactly.
That would be funny.
I mean, the point, because I didn't describe his lore because I was still creating it in my mind. The point is that you're an outsider, yeah, as a lore goes so far. So he lands in an alien's kingdoms, and they make him paint him like nature-based robot, something like that. You get a mix that is a robotic that lands in alien kingdoms. They take him as a hoster, then they're gonna see he's an intelligent form, and they're gonna turn him into friendly nature robot, something like that. Something like Bastion in Overwatch.
Very nice. Dvalin, any last words on this topic?
No, I'm all good.
All right. That has been Design Your Dream Class for Corepunk topic 3. And it's been a great conversation. Shout out to Shivo for the idea of making it a recurring theme. And I really look forward to seeing what people bring to the table in the future. Hello, and thank you for listening to the CoreCast podcast. It's your host, BOAST, and I appreciate you being here. This is a passion project for me around a game that I have high hopes for, something that has blended my absolute favorite genres into what so far looks like could be an absolute masterpiece. And that's where this intensity and this excitement and this passion comes from me. I wanted to give back to the community creatively, and that's how this podcast was born. We're going to be putting it up on our YouTube channel and on our Spotify channel for your consumption. So please don't hesitate to subscribe, like, follow, and join us here at the CoreCast podcast. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next topic. Okay, welcome back to CoreCast, episode 4. This is topic 4, and this is getting into our risk-reward, unpopular opinion, or potential concerns category. And this conversation, this topic comes from The Godless. And the question is, why only a few people will have legendary items? And to expand on this thought, and we know that there will be some items that are going to be super, super rare in the game, and why that's going to be, how that's going to be, how do you think that's going to affect the community and the players? And then I have a follow-up on that, which I think is actually kind of a cool idea that I'm going to share with you. But first, let's hear from Dvalin about legendary items, super rarity, and what that's going to potentially look like.
Well, so we kind of scratched this one also a little bit on the top, and I think legendary items should be something that is only for the hardcore players or the really extreme players. It's of course unfair for the people who are able to play 2 hours each day because of family and so on. Like myself, I have probably 2 to 4 hours every evening. Um, and well, that's maybe the thing that it's not giving me access to get legendaries. But I also hope that if they have like a raid with 3 difficulties on, I also think that maybe the last one should be able to earn you one. Um, but yeah, I think the legendary should be something that is really rare, and if you see someone in the city with it, it that you know that this guy here, he's extreme and he's like, a no life, a Corepunk fan. Um, I don't feel like it's something that people can boost others, so they can like say, hey, we're selling this raid for $200. Come and join, and you get a free legendary. That's also something I think is wrong. It should be something where the person has actually to be active. A really good system I liked in World of Warcraft is that if you wanted to get the legendary Shadowmourne axe in the Lich King expansion, you had to do a lot of things. You had to do a lot of like crafting stuff. You have to like follow a quest, and you had to do so many things. So you couldn't just get boosted. It was actively your choice. If you want to follow this, you have to do it. Um, the problem I see in Guild Wars 2 is that basically you can get a legendary with no problems. You can just use your MasterCard, buy a lot of gold, and then you can buy it on auction house. That's how you can get it the fastest way a legendary in Guild Wars. Or of course you can use what I don't know. You better know that boast, but you can use a lot of months to grind the legendary, or you can just have your dad's MasterCard ready by your side.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. Well, that's probably how I look at it. I don't feel like legendary should be rewarded easily. It has to be something that is really cool. But another thing I would say about this, I also think if you're going 12 man into a raid, really hardcore, we use 7 days to clear this. It's only like 2 hours before it resets. We finish it, and the last boss drop legendaries. I actually feel that everyone in the party should get a legendary. I don't feel like that only one of them should get a legendary. I feel everyone then deserve this legendary from this boss because everyone has been using, I don't know, 68 hours on clearing this raid on this difficult, then I think everyone should get a legendary for their class. And then they have this legendary, only this legendary that can get from this raid. And that's all.
And as far as we know, if you get this legendary, it's a legendary artifact, it's possible for you to drop this when you're killed?
No. That it should have like a stat. It should like in the bottom of the item there should be like undroppable, unkillable, unsellable. It should be an item that it will haunt you forever.
bound
It
to
will
you.
always exactly. It will
Yeah.
always be in your bag. You can't even drop it. You can't even sell it. If you want it that way, you at least have to put it in the bank. It will be
Sebastius,
stuck to you. So
what do you think about this?
You talked before that you wanna go a full set of legendaries that gonna not limit you, and not dropping it is quite against the karma system idea itself, I think.
Yeah,
Because if you are-
that's why I bring it up, because if you're a player killer and you're hunted down, there's a potential for you to drop an artifact, right? And maybe potentially a legendary artifact.
Well, potentially it will be random, most probably.
Okay.
But I think the point is we don't know how legendary is gonna look, and in my view, legendaries should be like that. They shouldn't be so much stronger than your normal epic items because they add one stat and how do I phrase it? Okay, they shouldn't be so much stronger. There should be small amount of power advantage between the common legendaries you can get and the super rare legendaries you can get. Because I think from the sites you can craft ones, so we will see a lot of legendaries crafted, unless we have some very rare materials to craft them. But I think they shouldn't be so much stronger because they should give small amount of advantage. So it's not gonna be so much advantage that the normal player will feel out in PvP, for example. Like, he has one legendary, the other guy has 6 epics, and he's gonna die pretty fast, like in 3 seconds from the guy with legendaries, because that's gonna be just unfair. But the small advantage between the legendaries and the epic, it's gonna be nice.
So it becomes more of a trophy at that point, right? Like,
Yeah, more a trophy that actually gives better stats, but not so much that it will change the gameplay like totally. So, for example, let's say in PvP you have 2000 DPS in your epic gear from high-end dungeons,
Mm-hmm.
and you have 2000 DPS, and guy with legendary is gonna have 2000 to 300 something around that. So it's gonna be a little bit more, but not so much that it will change the PvP scene and unbalance it. To be honest.
Okay, because I had an idea based on this topic, and this is definitely a like speculative idea, but
Yeah, sure. Whole topic is speculative. We said it in the first topic on items.
yeah, sure.
That we don't know how items and legendaries will look like, how they will work, so we're just speculating.
So that said, if it was possible to drop a legendary artifact, I thought what would be cool was in games like Rocket League, and there's other games that do this. I believe Call of Duty does it as well, where there's items that you can equip, and those items then record a history of what you've done with that item, like so many kills. Maybe it could be who's owned it before you. But how cool would it be if there was this crazy legendary like artifact, for example, that was gained like the ring in Lord of the Rings, for example, gained by someone, lost in a battle, picked up by someone else, and over the period of time it captured sort of the story of who had worn it and what crazy things they had done with it. I think that would be really cool.
I mean, that's somewhere against the point of development when it comes to dropping the such items.
Yeah.
Because most items gonna be bind and equip, so once you equip it, they stick to you to get forever. And if you drop them or lose them by death when being a criminal, they're
Yeah.
gonna turn into materials. So I think if a legendary items breaks, it will turn into some rare materials that you can use to craft another legendary using epic recipes.
Okay. That's
That's
cool.
what I see.
I can't wait to see how this plays out.
Yeah, but it still depends how the legendaries are looking.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that so far, we've seen that legendaries are just having one more additional passive stat.
Yeah. Dvalin, any last thoughts on this topic?
Well, yeah, I mean, it sound well. The last thing I want to say is that it of course it sounds cool that you can kill people and they have a chance to drop the legendary. I know it's only player killers who's able to drop that, but for some reason, yeah, as Sebastian is saying, that it will be against what the development cycle is right now. That each item, when you drop an item, it goes into materials, and I don't feel like a random player who just kills a player killer should be awarded with a legendary because he was just lucky. So yeah, I feel like you can only get the legendaries from actually really earning them. But I see your point with the ring. It would be really cool to have this item that has a history. But I mean, just imagine when 700 players had it, it would be like a log file from hell.
Sure, fair enough. Maybe it
I
just
mean,
records
that's-
kills or something. But yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just the nature of open world PvP at this point, to be honest. When there is a system where it drops items, you need to somehow balance it. So, guys that group up to camp a player gets his items. I think I saw it in EVE Online where some guild camped for a spaceship to log in the game for like 4 years or something like that. And they killed the guy and got loot worth I think $50,000 or something like that. Because they were waiting 4 years for a guy to log in the game.
Yeah, I read that too. That's insane dedication. I hope we see dedication like that in Corepunk. I feel like Sebastius, you're going to bring some insane dedication to this game, and I look forward to it.
At this point, I'm not so much into the actual game. I'm more into the community because I perceive games as a thing. Oh, it's fun to play. It's very good to play a game. It's good to spend their time there and free time, of course, because there's work, family, and stuff like that. But I think in general, Corepunk will be a good game, and I will be happy to find myself in it for a longer period of time. But we will see once it released. Yeah, we all might get bored after it, like for 2-3 months. We can't say about anything about this before we touch it with our own hands.
Yeah.
At this point, because Right now we have only trailer and some promises and Discord text message. That's just theory.
Fair enough.
So we will need to wait. But I will be happy to indulge into such game for a longer period of time.
Fair enough. Good, very good point. And Dvalin, before we go, would you like to see or say anything to your adoring fans or anyone out there that's maybe new to Corepunk? Anything that you want to tell them? Now's your chance.
Well, I'll just say they are all awesome for being on this podcast and listening. And if you want to know out there any news about Corepunk, anything you need to know about Corepunk, you can follow me on YouTube. It's the DVALIN DK, Dvalin DK, and I'm making content about all the news. So if you want to know anything about Corepunk, you come over to me. Else, well, thanks for listening to this Corepunk podcast.
Absolutely. It's early. It's really early, guys. And I appreciate you guys for being here this early. I appreciate myself for being up this early as well. It was a late night last night, and it was hard to get up this morning. And I definitely am going to have a massive coffee after this is done. Sebastius, thank you so much for joining us today. Would love to have you back in the future. I loved hearing your perspective on everything from the game to life itself. Anything you want to say to anyone out there that's listening, or to your Polish community as well?
Well, I don't have much to say. I will just say, if you have no time to watch Dvalin videos about the game, you can always jump in the official Discord and that question there. People gonna respond to them.
That's right. Because right now we've got nothing better to do.
Yeah. I'm just scraping info.
It's been an absolute pleasure to run this podcast again. Thank you so much again to Dvalin and SsebastiusS for joining today. This has been episode 4 of CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast. You're going to find this on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, and Reddit as well. All of the links are in the description below. It's been just a blast talking about this game, and the game isn't even out yet. We've got nothing but an announcement trailer and some tidbits of information from the developers, and we are still having tons of fun making content about it. Thank you so much for listening, and on behalf of Dvalin, SsebastiusS, and the CORECAST staff, we wish you a good day, and we can't wait to see you next time in CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast.